I almost didn't pick up that call. And if I had let it ring just a few seconds longer, a woman might have died on her kitchen floor while her little girl sat there waiting for someone who was never coming. That's what still sticks with me. Not the blood. Not the hospital. Not even the look on that kid's face when she opened the door. It's how close everything came to ending differently. All because of one wrong number. It was late. I was in my apartment, winding down after a long day, when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd ignore it. Most people do. But that night, I answered. At first, I didn't hear words. Just breathing. Quiet. Shaky. Then a little girl's voice, trying hard to stay steady. I'm sorry, is this Uncle Nate? I knew right away she had the wrong person. But I also had a feeling something wasn't right. The kind of feeling that makes you stop what you're doing and really listen. So I said, no, but tell me what's going on. And she said, my mom fell. She's bleeding. She won't wake up. Can you come, please? There are moments when you don't sit there and think about whether something is your responsibility. You just move. That was one of those moments. I asked where she was. She didn't know the address. Didn't know the street. Just said they lived above Jimmy's hardware store in East Boston. Red door. Apartment 3B. And the way she said it told me everything. She was scared. But she was trying to stay clear, trying to say it right, like she didn't want to mess it up. I grabbed my coat and my keys and headed out. No hesitation. No overthinking. I called emergency services on the way, but I wasn't about to wait and hope they got there in time. 13 minutes later, I pulled up in front of a building that looked like it had been forgotten years ago. Ice on the steps, rust on the rails, and that red door she mentioned, barely holding together. I took the stairs fast and knocked once. The door opened just a little, and there she was. Small, barefoot in wet socks, holding a phone with both hands like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She looked at me and said, "You really came." That line hit harder than I expected, because no kid should sound surprised that someone showed up. I stepped inside. The place was clean, but worn down. The kind of place where you can tell someone's trying their best to hold things together. There was soup still warm on the stove, laundry piled in the corner, a calendar on the fridge with a few dates circled in red. Not much food around, just enough to tell you life hadn't been easy for a while. Then I saw Marissa. She was lying on the kitchen floor next to a broken mug. Tea still warm. Blood behind her ear. Her breathing shallow. Her skin pale. I checked her pulse, looked for injuries, pressed gently along her ribs. She was still holding on. Barely. But she was. That was enough. I lifted her carefully. And the moment I did, I noticed how light she was. Lighter than she should have been. And that told me more than anything else. I looked at Lily and said, "Go get your coat." She didn't ask questions, didn't freeze. She just nodded and did it. Kids in situations like that don't act like kids. They get quiet, focused, stronger than they should have to be. We got into the car and headed straight for the ER. Lily sat in the back next to her mom, watching her the whole time like she could keep her here just by not looking away. I kept checking the mirror, watching both of them, running through routes in my head. At the second red light, she spoke. "You're not Uncle Nate." I said no. She asked, "Are you a doctor?" I said no. She went quiet for a moment, then said, "But you still came." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her in the mirror. And what I saw wasn't just fear anymore. It was hope. Small, fragile, but there. Then she asked, "My mom's gonna be okay, right?" I wish I could say I knew, but I didn't. "Still," I said, "yeah, she will." Because sometimes what a kid needs isn't certainty. It's someone willing to stand there and not walk away. At the hospital, I carried Marissa straight inside. I didn't stop at the desk. I didn't wait. Someone tried to slow me down, but I just said, "She's not waiting out here." And that was enough. They took her in right away. After that, all we could do was wait. So I sat there with Lily. She curled up in the chair, her coat zipped all the way up, holding a bottle of water I gave her, but not drinking it. I asked if Marissa was her mom. She nodded and said, "She works a lot." That was it. Not, "She's kind." Not, "I love her." Just that. She works a lot. And somehow, that said everything. I asked if she was hungry. She shook her head. I knew that didn't mean she wasn't. It just meant this wasn't the moment. About 30 minutes later, a nurse came out and said Marissa was stable. Concussion. Dehydration. Exhaustion. But no internal bleeding. She was going to wake up, and I could see it. Lily finally let out a breath she'd been holding the whole time. She asked if I could come in with her. I said yes, without thinking. Because after everything, leaving her alone at that moment didn't feel right. Marissa woke up slowly, confused, in pain. She saw me and tried to sit up too fast. I told her to take it easy, that she'd lost blood, but she was safe now. She looked at me, trying to understand why I was there. "Who are you?" she asked. I paused for a second, then said the only thing that made sense. "Your daughter called me, by mistake. She thought I was someone else. She said, 'You fell.' So I came. And that's the truth. Nothing more than that. A wrong number. A scared little girl, and a moment where showing up was the only thing that mattered." Marissa looked at me like she was trying to piece the night back together. Then Lily called out from the doorway, and I saw it hit her all at once. The fall. The floor. The cold tile. Then nothing. She closed her eyes for a second and said, almost under her breath, "I must have told her to call Uncle Nate. He lives downstairs. She must have hit the wrong number." I nodded and told her the only thing that mattered. She was scared, but she did everything right. And I meant that, because I've seen grown people freeze in moments like that. Her kid didn't. She looked down at the IV in her arm, breathing still uneven. Then back at me. "Thank you. For coming. For helping her. For helping me." I don't always know what to do when people say that. I just nodded. But I felt it. Like the night had finally been said out loud. She asked how I moved so fast. I told her. Lily said there was blood. And that was enough. I didn't think. I just got in the car. She asked why I didn't wait for an ambulance. I said, because I was closer. Then after a second, I added, and because waiting is where things go wrong. I almost stopped there, but something pushed through anyway. And I know what it feels like to need someone to show up, and nobody does. She didn't ask me about that, and I was glad. Some things don't need explaining. The way they come out already says enough. The room went quiet, not empty, just heavy in a way that didn't feel bad. Then a soft knock. Lily peeked in, holding a small stuffed bear, hair still messy from sleep. The second she saw her mom sitting up, she ran straight to her. "Mama." Marissa pulled her in tight. Hey, I'm okay, I'm right here." Lily turned and pointed at me like she didn't want to miss any part of the story. "He came really fast, like in the movies." I almost smiled at that. Marissa did laugh. Quiet, tired, but real. She looked at me again. "I'm sorry, I didn't get your name." "Ethan," I said. "Ethan Cole." She paused. Just for a second. Like the name meant something, but she couldn't place it. Then the moment moved on. A nurse stepped in, checking her chart. Said she was stable. Could be discharged soon. He just needed someone to sign the papers. Marissa looked at me, and surprised. "You didn't have to stay." "I know," I said. Then after a second. "But I did." I took the paperwork out. Already signed. Already handled. She looked at me, confused now. "You covered this? It's done," I said. "You don't need to worry about it tonight. Just take your daughter home." Lily looked between us. "Is he your friend now?" Marissa looked at me. Really looked this time. Not like I was a stranger anymore. More like she was deciding what to do with the fact that I wasn't acting like one. Then she said, soft, "He might be." That stayed with me. Later, when she was getting ready to leave, she thanked me again. Not just for the ride, not just for the hospital, but for staying. I nodded and headed for the door. But something stopped me. One of those small details your mind holds on to without asking permission. Marissa, right, I said. She nodded. You ever work at Street Gabriel's? She blinked. Yeah, years ago. Why? I shrugged it off. Just sounded familiar. I didn't explain, because I didn't need to. Not everything has to be opened right away. I left, but I didn't really leave. Because later that morning, I found myself back at their building. I told myself it was just to drop something off. But the truth is, I wanted to make sure they were okay. Not in a big way, just in a real way. When she got home, she told me later, the first thing she noticed wasn't the quiet, it was the smell. Faint, metallic, still there. She stopped in the kitchen doorway and saw it, the dark stain across the floor. The mop still leaning where everything had been left, like the night never fully ended. She got Lily into the bedroom, told her to change, told her she'd make something warm. Then the door closed, and Marissa dropped to her knees and started scrubbing. Not crying, not thinking, just scrubbing. Like if she could erase that spot, maybe she could push the whole night back a little. That's when I knocked, 3 times. Steady, not loud, just enough. When she opened the door, I was standing there with a small paper bag. Basic supplies. Things hospitals don't always send home with you. She looked more surprised that I came back than anything I was holding. You didn't have to do this, she said. I didn't do it for thanks, I told her. Then I asked, can I come in? Before she answered, Lily peeked out and smiled like she already knew the answer. Hi, Mr. Ethan. Marissa hesitated. Just a second, then stepped aside. I walked in, set the bag down, looked around. The place felt smaller in the morning, and more honest. My eyes landed on the kitchen floor, then back to her. I meant what I said, I told her. Your daughter did something most people wouldn't. Marissa leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, like standing itself was still hard. She's strong, she said, then quieter. She has to be. And the way she said that told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't planning to ask more, but something about the way Marissa said that hospital name earlier stayed in my head. Street Gabriel's. It didn't sit right. So before I left, I asked, quieter this time. That was your last job. Right. She nodded. Slow. Like she already knew where this was going. Head nurse. Oncology floor. 8 years. You left on your own. She shook her head. And I saw it. That shift. Jaw tightening. Not anger. Something older than that. No, I filed a complaint, she said. A patient died. Equipment failure. And nobody wanted to admit it. I didn't interrupt. I've learned you don't rush people when they finally decide to say the part they've been holding in. They called it an isolated issue, she went on. Finance board signed it off, then they started pushing me out. That part didn't surprise me. I've seen that pattern before. Just in different rooms, with different suits. I asked her what exactly failed. She hesitated, just for a second, then said it, cardiac monitor. It didn't trigger an alert during a complication. We didn't catch it in time. There it was. Not loud, not dramatic. Just the kind of detail that sticks. Because it shouldn't have happened. I asked if she kept anything. Any records. Anything official. She looked at me differently then. Not defensive, but measuring. Why do you care? I told her the truth. Or at least the part that mattered. That hospital's tied to a fund I used to sit on, and the names come up more than once over the past couple years. I just never looked closely. That changed something in her face. Not relief, not trust, just recognition. If you kept anything, I said, I'd like to see it. Off the record. She didn't answer right away, just turned. Walked to a drawer near the fridge. Pulled out a sealed brown envelope, her handwriting on it, tight, careful, like she wrote it knowing no one else would read it unless something went wrong. She handed it to me. I was going to send it to the state board, she said, but they got to me first. I opened it carefully. Logs, internal emails, screenshots. and one page circled in red. Supply receipt. Defective monitors. Signed off by the hospital's CFO. I read the name, then looked up. You saw this yourself? She shook her head. No. But he approved every order for our floor. I closed the file slowly. I know that name, I said. And I did. Andrew Kalin. It hit like a pattern lining up. He worked on a couple of projects I funded years back, I added. Both ran over budget, both shut down fast. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. Then I handed the file back. Do you trust me enough to hold on to this for now? She didn't hesitate long, just looked at me and said, I don't trust easily, but I trust facts. That told me everything. If you can do something with it, quietly, then keep it. Right then, Lily walked back in. Mismatched clothes. Stuffed panda under her arm. Like the world had already moved on for her in the small way kids know how to do. She looked at me, then at her mom. Can he stay for pancakes? I almost smiled. Marissa let out a small laugh. First real break in her shoulders since I'd walked in. Maybe next time, she said. I nodded. Next time sounds good. Then I looked back at Marissa. Tone shifting again. Someone buried this, I said, and not by accident. She didn't argue. If I find something, I'll call you. I handed her a plain black card. No name. Just a number. And if you remember anything else, call me directly. Then I left. This time the door closed all the way. But what stayed behind wasn't silence. It was something else. Movement. The kind you don't notice until it's already started. I didn't go home that night. I went straight to my office. Overlooking the river. Frozen solid. City lights reflecting off it like nothing was wrong anywhere. My coat was still on. The file was open on my desk. Every page marked. Timestamps. Signatures. Things that didn't line up the way they were supposed to. By 2 a.m., the whole building was quiet, except for the servers. And my head, I wasn't thinking about business. Not investors. Not numbers. I kept thinking about Marissa, the way her hands shook, but her eyes didn't. That kind of steady doesn't come from confidence. It comes from being ignored long enough that you stop asking people to believe you. You just keep the proof. I picked up my phone and called a private line. One ring. Jonas, I said, I need a full audit on Westwood Medical Fund. Everything. Grants. Subcontractors. Tonight. He didn't ask questions. I'm on it. That's why I keep him around. I leaned back, rubbed my eyes. I hadn't really slept. Not that night. Not the nights before either. Then a file pinged onto my screen. Internal review, CFO records. I opened it, and there it was. The name again. Andrew Kalin. And this time, it wasn't a coincidence anymore. That's when it stopped looking like bad luck and started looking like a pattern. I had 3 projects open on my screen. 2 mobile clinics, 1 rural diagnostics pilot. All of them failed within 18 months. Budgets blew up. Results disappeared. And back then, I told myself it was just the market. Things don't always work. But now, the same name kept showing up. Andrew Kalin. That wasn't coincidence anymore. Another alert came in. Flagged transaction. February 2021, $480,000, rerouted into a subsidiary. Medcore Integrated Holdings. I pulled it up, dug 1 layer deeper. Silent partner, Kalin. I leaned back. Just for a second. Then stood up. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't oversight. This was built to stay hidden. And someone was paying to keep it that way. I picked up my phone. And for a moment, I thought about calling legal or compliance, the usual route. I didn't. I called her. The line rang twice. Then Marissa answered. Her voice still rough with sleep. Hello. It's Ethan, I said, kept my voice low. Steady. I wouldn't call this late unless it mattered. There was a pause. Not surprised. Just quiet. I'm listening, she said. I need you to walk me through that night, I told her. Not the report. Not what you filed. I need what actually happened. Step by step. Like you're there again. Silence. Then she started. There was a boy, she said. Connor. 7 years old. Leukemia. Her voice changed when she said his name. Softer, but heavier. His numbers were low. Chemo was already hard on his heart. I told them we needed full telemetry, not just basic monitoring. She took a breath. They gave us Unit 4C. It had already been flagged the week before. I reported it. And nothing changed, I said. Nothing. I closed my eyes. Then what? Night shift, she said. I was covering. Around 2 a.m. He went into cardiac distress. She paused. The alarm never went off. That line landed harder than anything else. We didn't know until his mom ran into the hallway screaming. I didn't say anything. He coded before we got him back. She continued. He died 40 minutes later. There was a long pause. They told me it was a fluke. She said. Quieter now. But I checked the logs. The monitor never registered. And when I went back later, the report had been changed. I felt something tighten in my chest. This wasn't about paperwork. It wasn't about policy. This was about a kid. This wasn't about money for you, I said. No, she replied. It was about his mother. She stopped for a second, then said it. The look on her face. When I told her there was nothing left to do, I didn't move. That never left me. Neither of us spoke. Then I said the only thing that mattered. I believe you, and I meant it. I'll take it from here. She didn't rush and didn't push. I don't want revenge, she said. I just want it to stop happening. So do I. Before I hung up, she said something that stuck. I didn't expect anyone to come back to that file. I let out a breath. Neither did I. I ended the call. But I didn't sit back. Something had shifted. This wasn't just another problem to clean up. This mattered. And I wasn't walking away. I didn't wait until morning. I called Jonas. Full audit. Westwood Medical Fund. Everything. Tonight. He didn't question it. Then I moved. Next stop. The board. The room on the 47th floor was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. Charles Whitmore was already there, reading glasses on. Flipping through the file I dropped in front of him. These aren't public records, he said. No, I replied. He kept reading. Page after page. Names, timestamps, transfers, internal data. Then he stopped. Elena, he read. He looked up at me. You've done your homework. She didn't send it, I said. She kept it hidden. He leaned back slightly. What does she want? Nothing, I said. And that was the problem. Because people who want nothing usually have the truth. Silence filled the room. Outside, the city kept moving like nothing was happening. But inside, something was starting to crack. And, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing a story anymore. I was standing in the middle of one. I should have walked away after that meeting, but I didn't. Because once you see the pattern, you can't pretend it's just numbers anymore. Charles was the first to say it out loud. If even half of this is real, this isn't compliance. This is criminal. I didn't argue, because I already knew. This kind of exposure, he continued, it won't just hit the fund. It'll drag everything connected to it down. Lawsuits, investigations, everything. He leaned back and looked at me. So what are you actually trying to do here? That was the moment. The one where people expect you to pick a side. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to convince him. I want the truth handled inside first, I said. I want him removed. I want the records cleaned up. No press, no headlines. He watched me carefully, like he was trying to figure out which version of me he was talking to. You're trying to protect the nurse, he said. I shook my head slightly. I'm trying to protect what's left of decency. And I meant that, because I've seen what happens when nobody steps in early. She spoke up once, I added, and it cost her everything. I'm not letting that happen again. The room went quiet after that. Charles closed the file slowly, tapped it once. I'll move it through audit, he said. But this stays contained until legal confirms everything. It won't leak, I said. He exhaled. You've already moved on this, haven't you? I spoke with Catherine. Compliance is ready. No trail. No noise. Just work. He shook his head slightly. You really don't stop, do you? I gave a small smile. Not when people get hurt and no one notices. That was the last thing I said before I left. But I didn't go home to rest. I went home because I couldn't sit still anywhere else. I ended up on the floor. File open in front of me. Not reading the numbers anymore. Just that letter. Her handwriting. Careful. Controlled. Like someone who already knew no one was going to listen. And I kept thinking, if Lily hadn't called the wrong number, none of this would have come back up. I don't believe in fate, but I believe in moments. And this one, I wasn't wasting. Around 9, I was back at her door. I didn't plan that either. I just drove. She opened it without asking why I was there. That told me enough. The apartment was quiet. Lily already asleep. Marissa set 2 cups of tea down. It didn't ask small questions. You found something, she said. I nodded. Set the folder on the table. Thinner, but heavier. I need you with me on this, I said. Not as staff, not for them, as an independent voice. She didn't even hesitate. No. I blinked. You didn't even hear me out. I don't need to, she said. Her hands tightened slightly on the table. I remember everything, every hallway, every shift, every name they erased. That part hit harder than anything else. You think I don't want justice, she said. I do. Then her voice dropped. But I also want to keep what's left of me. That stopped me, because that's the part nobody talks about. What it costs just to survive something like that. I wouldn't ask if I thought anyone else could do it, I said. She shook her head. That's exactly why you shouldn't ask. Silence stretched between us. Not tense. Just real. Then a small voice broke it. Mum. Lily stood in the hallway, holding her rabbit, eyes half awake. If you help, will the bad people stop? That question didn't sound like a kid's question. It sounded like something she'd been carrying. Marissa looked at her, and I saw it happen. The shift, the same one from the hospital. Only this time, it wasn't fear. It was a decision. She closed her eyes. Took a breath. Okay, she said. I'll do it. I didn't move. Because I knew there was more coming. One condition. She added, standing straighter now. I'm not doing this for you. Not for your company. Not for any board. Her voice was steady. I'm doing this for the people who didn't get a second chance. She paused. And when it's done, I walk away. I nodded. That's all I wanted. Later that night, sitting in my car, I called Jonas. Because now, this wasn't just a case anymore. It was something we had to finish. She's in, I said the second Jonas picked up. I thought maybe he'd sound relieved, maybe even a little human for once. But he didn't. He just said, then I hope she's ready. Because what I pulled from Medcor's old shell accounts ties them to a second site, a rural palliative center in Vermont. And the transfer approval was signed by Andrew Kalin. I tightened my grip on the wheel and didn't say anything right away. Because by then, it wasn't just one hospital anymore. It wasn't one bad call, one bad machine, one dead child. It was a system. And systems like that don't break people by accident. Jonas kept talking. This is bigger than embezzlement. This is patient neglect with money behind it. That landed exactly the way it should have. Ugly and clear. I told him to start building the map. Every name, every connection, every shell, every transfer. But Marissa's name stayed out of it. Every draft, every report, every version. Already done, he said. After I left, Marissa sat at her table a long time. She told me that later. The folder was in front of her. Untouched. Tea gone cold. The apartment, quiet in that strange way it gets when your head is louder than the room. She opened the kitchen drawer, took out her old hospital ID, looked at it for a while, then set it back down. Not because it didn't matter, but because something else mattered more. She reached under Lily's coloring books and pulled out a red spiral notebook, pages of initials, dates, notes she once thought she'd destroy, and she opened it, not to remember, but to stop letting other people rewrite what happened. By the time the sun came up, Jonas was in my office looking like he hadn't slept at all. To file under one arm, eyes burned out from staring at numbers too long. I was standing by the window when he walked in. Didn't even turn around at first. He said, "You need to see this," and put the folder down on the glass table. I opened it. There it was. A transfer authorization from Street Gabriel's, dated December 17th. Approved under Marissa Bennett's name. Signed off by Andrew Kalin. The problem was simple. Marissa had never worked finance, never touched anything like that, never signed anything outside medical supply requests. And she definitely wasn't on shift the night that form was stamped. I said she told me she'd never signed anything like it. Jonas said, "She didn't." Then he showed me why. He had one of her old signatures from an HR file. Same name, same letters. But the movement was off. The loops too stiff. The baseline too even. Somebody had copied her name without knowing how her hand actually moved. "It's forged," he said. I picked up my phone right there. Not to call legal. Not yet. I called Marissa. She answered calm, almost too calm, like she had already lived through the worst part and didn't have room left for surprise. I told her I was coming over, that I wanted her to see something herself. When I got there, Lily was already at school. The apartment smelled faintly like cinnamon and radiator heat. Marissa sat across from me while I laid the paper on the kitchen table. She read it slowly, didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't even get angry the way most people would. She just blinked once when she saw her own name written in a hand that wasn't hers. Then she said, very quiet, "I don't remember that night, but I know I didn't sign this." I told her I knew, and then I said the part that hit both of us the hardest. And they used her name because it was easy, because by then she'd already been discredited, already pushed out, already made into the kind of person people stop listening to. Marissa went still for a second, then said, "That was the point. Use someone already broken. Nobody listens to the ones who already fell." She stood up and went to the sink, ran cold water over her hands. Not because they were dirty, but because people do that when they're trying to steady themselves without letting it show. Then she turned back to me and asked the only question that mattered. "If we send this, he's not going to go quietly." I told her he wouldn't get the chance. The board was already setting up an emergency vote. The full report would be in before noon. Once the forged signature hit the file, Andrew Kalin was finished. She dried her hands, looked at me, and said, "Then let me send it." I watched her for a second, to see. Not because I doubted her, because I knew what that moment cost. I asked if she was sure. She said, "I need to end this. For every patient who trusted me. For every shift I worked while someone else was making money off broken machines." So I stayed beside her. And she hit send. 41 hours later, the notice went up inside the executive channel. Andrew Kalin suspended indefinitely. Internal investigation. Federal review pending. Once the forged documents were matched against the MedCore trail, everything started moving fast. Faster than people like him usually let things move. Shell accounts, false approvals, redirected money. One piece after another. Neat in the worst way. And impossible to explain away. When Marissa came to my office after that, she didn't ask if he was going to prison. Didn't ask how bad the fallout would be. Didn't ask whether the board was scared. She looked at the final report in my hand and asked one thing. "Are those machines still being used?" I told her no. Every flagged unit had been pulled 2 days earlier. Every single one. And that was the first time I saw her shoulders drop, even a little. Not relief, exactly. Just the kind of release that comes when one part of the damage finally stops spreading. Then she looked at me and said, "Then I'm done." I asked what she meant, even though I already knew. She said she wasn't going back. Not to hospitals. Not to boards. Not to policy meetings. Not to rooms where people learned how to bury harm under nicer language. And the way she said it, I understood this wasn't defeat. It was the first real boundary she'd been allowed to keep in years. I thought offering her more would fix something. It didn't. Marissa looked at me and said she was done giving herself to systems that take everything and give nothing back. And the way she said it, there was no anger in it. Just something settled. Something decided. I tried anyway. I told her she could stay on. independent, flexible, paid more than before. She didn't even think about it. No, I told her it wasn't charity, that it was what she deserved. She looked straight at me. Calm. Steady. Exactly, she said. That's why I get to decide what peace looks like for me. That was it. No argument, no push. And for once, I didn't try to change her mind. Because I knew she wasn't walking away from something. She was finally walking back to herself. That night, I found myself outside her building again. I didn't plan it. I just drove. Rain was coming down light. The kind that makes the city quieter instead of louder. I stood there for a minute, just breathing, looking up at the same window, light still on. I almost didn't go in, but then the door opened. Lily stood there, oversized cardigan, smiling like she'd been waiting. "You're late," she whispered. "I know," I said, and I stepped inside. The place felt different. Not better, not worse, just real. Marissa was in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring something on the stove. No makeup, hair tied back. She turned. We looked at each other. No big moment. No words ready. Just that quiet you don't need to fill. I said the only thing that felt honest. "I didn't come here to fix your life." She nodded. I took a breath. I think I came because mine needed fixing. That surprised even me. I wasn't used to saying things like that out loud. "I don't know what this is yet," I said. "But if you're okay with it, I'd like to stay a little longer." She didn't answer right away. She reached into the drawer, pulled out another spoon, handed it to me. "Then stir," she said. "Don't let it burn." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was simple, and simple felt new. I stood next to her, stirring. Lily at the table flipping pages of a book. Garlic, heat, quiet voices. Nothing big, but everything real. And that's when it hit me. All the things I thought mattered before. The deals, the control, the systems. None of it ever gave me this. Not once. This. Just being somewhere you're allowed to stay. Not because you built it, not because you paid for it, but because someone made room for you. I used to think showing up once was enough. That, if you helped, fixed something, moved on, that was it. But I was wrong. Sometimes showing up is just the beginning. Staying, that's the part that changes things. If there's anything I learned from all of this, it's that people don't always need saving. They need to be seen. They need someone who doesn't leave the second it gets complicated. And sometimes, the smallest moment, a wrong number, a call you almost ignore, can change more than anything you planned. So, if you're still here, if you stayed through this story, maybe there's something in your life you've been putting off. A call, a conversation, showing up for someone. Don't wait too long, because you don't always get another chance to answer. And sometimes, that one moment is everything.